Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to be showing you how to do Squarepusher and Venetian Snares style breakcore. We're going to be talking about their more atmospheric, kind of like ethereal style of breakcore. You can get this entire template, all the drums, samples, MIDI, presets, all that stuff is at the top of the description on my website. It's a really nice template to make this kind of jungle and breakcore stuff. So definitely go ahead and grab that. Thanks for the support, guys, and let's get started. Alright, so the first thing we should talk about here would be the drums. So basically, it's really this one drum rack. The second drum rack here is just a variation of that, and then there's just a little kick down here. So basically, what's going on with this drum rack? As you can hear, we have a bunch of different breaks. What I've done is I've taken 3 breaks here that were like these Rex files. That's why the simpler looks so weird with all these chops here. And I've basically taken just individual hits from this. Like I have the kick. I got some snares, I got some hi-hats, right? And then I have 3 of these. You can see there's this amen variation, this flying 3 break, and then this suburban, right? And I've kind of played around with the different chops in different ways. Like with the kicks, you can see what I did is I literally layered in a kick. I made an instrument rack here, so the way you do that is you just select your chop and hit Command G or Control G on Windows, and then you make an instrument rack, and you can go in here, and if you just drag a sample to here, it'll layer it. Every time this one hits, you'll also hear that sample that you drag in. So for the kicks, I did that. Right, and then I just kind of mixed it, and you'll notice the kicks are a bit louder than everything. I did that on purpose, right? Because it is a drum rack, so you can't just go over here and turn up the volumes. So you just got to make sure, like, you kind of want your kicks to be louder. Because if you don't have that, what it was sounding like before I did that is you kind of just had this, like, drum soup where it's like it all just kind of blends together. This makes it so you really hear those kicks, right? And then also just layering it. Like, if I turn this off, you can see. Like, it's literally like 909 kicks. And I've done this on all the kicks, with different kicks on each one, right? So you get a little bit of a different sound, but they're basically all these 909 kicks. And the other thing you can hear is there's a bit of stereo width. There's some chops here that I panned, right? Like this one, if you go into the controls here, you can see. It's not all of them. It's mainly just hi-hats. That one's panned to the right. So then when it jumps around, you get this cool panning effect. Then the last piece to this is I put everything on gate mode, right? Which basically means that as long as you hold out a note is as long as the sample plays. Like if I do really quick, you just get a little piece of it. If I hold it out, you get the whole sample, which is going to come into play in a second. Now, what you're going to do this really easily is you just take one of these, right? And then you switch it to gate mode, and then you can double click or right click on Windows and hit copy value to siblings. And that's going to change it so that every single sample is on that mode, which saves you a lot of time so you don't have to go and hit gate mode on every single one of these. So then what we're doing, so we have this drum rack that I set up. And then you can see there's a MIDI clip here where the first kick plays, and then you have every single note at once, right? Now, obviously, you're not hearing every single note at once, and that's where this arpeggiator comes in. This is how we're creating the choppy breakbeat. You're giving it every note, and then it's on random. Random other is what I chose. So you basically are just jumping around all the different chops on a 16th note here. I've also automated that at some points. Like that's where you're getting like this kind of slowdown effect. Right? Like all those little slowdowns are because I automated the rate there, right? And you could even do that in a different way. Like if you wanted, you could put an LFO on the rate and just let it move around itself. But that is how you get the choppy breaks. You put all these drums into a drum rack. Make sure like certain hits that you want to be louder. Like even some of the snares I turned up louder too, not just the kicks, are loud enough. And then it's the random arpeggiator. and then you get that sound. Now, also on this arpeggiator, you can see this gate moving around. I have this random LFO over here set like this to the gate. The gate is just telling you how long the notes are going to be. So that's why that goes back to that gate mode I was telling you a second ago here, because basically now we have some of the notes are really short and some of them are really long. If we get rid of the LFO, you can hear it's a little bit more static and not as exciting. This could work too, but I wanted to show you how to like really go crazy with it. And if you turn up the depth even more, right, that's how you can get those really, really choppy breaks that are like super short that you hear in a lot of tracks by both of these guys. So then that is the first drum rack. The second drum rack is the exact same thing. It's even the same MIDI clip, right? But what I did is I pitched everything up a lot, just to give it some variation, and then that's just on these ending parts here. So for this one, what I did is I just pitched one of these up plus 12, and then same deal, copy value to siblings. There's also a beat repeat on this one, right? If I turn that off, right, that's just doing a little bit of extra glitches. Beat repeat is really, really good for this style. And the last piece of the drums down here is just this kick. It just goes dum dum. I got that from Venetian Snares. A lot of his tunes will have that where it's the break beats, and then like at the end of every 8 bars or something like that, it just goes. Next we move down to this final little glitchy percussion layer. So this is following the breakbeat. What it is, it's literally, you can see it's even the same MIDI clip, right? Where I just have a bunch of different notes playing. And then what we're doing is I have this same arpeggiator, right? With the same automations even, like if you look at it. So it slows down with the breakbeat. But then what it's doing is you can see the gates moving around just like that was. I have the steps turned up though, which basically just means it's going to jump around different octaves, which will make sense in a second, because what we're doing here is you can see I got some white noise. It's a very short punchy sound. Like if I bring the sustain up, right, you can hear what it's doing, but it's super short and percussive. And then we have a bandpass filter here, and this has a little envelope on it to give it some punch and a bunch of resonance. And then you can see I have this key tracking here turned up a bunch, which means that wherever the filter or wherever the note is on the keyboard, the filter is going to follow. If it's low, the filter will be a lot more closed. If it's high, the filter will be a lot more open, meaning then when we jump a bunch of different octaves randomly with the arpeggiator, that's how you get all those crazy variations in the sound, right? So then the other thing here is I got this LFO on the filter, so if I turn that off and then on, right, it's just super fast. It kind of gives it like a more buzzy sound. Like if I bring up the sustain, you can hear this more, right? So then this LFO here is just going to the gate on the arpeggiator, so just telling it how long the notes are going to be. And then we got a little bit of grain delay. Now this one, the secret is it's really, really fast, and the spray and frequency are kind of low. So you can hear it's really just kind of spreading the sound out a little bit and just making it a little bit freakier. Then we got the bass line. So this bass line is really simple. Now the thing is, obviously, like, you know, with electronic music, it's all about how your bass and drums work together. So if your drums are literally doing this, there's not a lot of room for a crazy bass line, right? A lot of times in these tunes, it's really just like a big 808 kind of bass hit like this. That's nice and held out, right? Because all your movement is happening in the drums. You don't need the bass to do a lot. So this is just literally just this 808 that I made with operator, like just a sine wave with a really short envelope and a little bit of FM from another sine wave. That's it. And then this tiny bit of pitch envelope. And then it's following the chord progression, which you'll see in a second. But again, it's really more about like just not clashing with what's going on in the drums and just letting it work with the drums as well as with the pad, which we'll play now. the pad. It's made with 2 layers, so we have kind of like the bass notes. As you can see, it's that same thing you just saw with the bass line. So in the key here of F minor, we're going root, 6th, 4th, 6th. And again, it goes back to those drums, like because the drums are so crazy, with these more ambient breakcore kind of tracks, like it's kind of perfect if you just have this really like slow moving pad that holds out the notes, and just you have some notes that relate really well like this, but they're not like trying to do too much that's going to get in the way of those crazy drums. You really have to fit everything around those. And then there's also this, kind of like a melody playing over top of it. And you'll notice this kind of basically follows what the bass line was doing there, right? With some variations, like when it goes up to the 4th, this plays the 5th, but then it goes back down to the 6th. So, you know, it's really not even too crazy. Again, the really crazy drums kind of take up so much room that you don't want to do too much with these. Now, for the sound design on these, there's a very important thing that I noticed with these tracks, like things like Beep Street, for example, by Squarepusher. The key to these pads is that it's sampling, using like notes, like a one shot like this. Right, like if I play the original on that. Listen to how much texture and character there is in that just comes from using a sample. And then also when you pitch it around the keyboard like this, and you slow it down and you pitch it down and stuff, there's just certain textures that you get from that you can't really create with synthesis, right? You just have to like sample sounds like this. And then that's going through a bunch of reverb. And it's pan to the right. And then the other one, like you hear that, it's literally like getting bit crushed because it's pitched down so low from the original sample. Like you take these very high samples and you play them lower, and you can hear like how you're hearing like a lot of texture that again you just don't get when you synthesize your sounds from scratch like that. So I've got those panned and just a bunch of reverb separately. Also, the reverb on this one helps it be a little bit less choppy, right? And a little bit more kind of magic. And then on the group here, I have this low pass filter just taking a little bit of highs off. So it goes from this to this. It's super subtle, but it kind of just makes it a bit darker. And it also helps to kind of put them together as one thing because they're all going in under the same like umbrella. Then the last layer we got here is this glitchy lead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all the effects on this and go one by one and show you what's happening. So you can see we have this lead pattern, which is pretty much following, like, again, the chord progression, you know, like a lot of the same voices that I showed you, you know, the root note, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th. That's all it is, right? It's really simple. We got this wavetable patch, which is just a sine wave, a short envelope like that, right? So you really hear each pluck like that. And then some noise unison. Then I brought in the step arp sort of MIDI effect for Ableton. Which you can see is set like this. It's really slow and it's starting to interact with the MIDI, right? And then what I've done here is I've played around with the chants, which is basically just saying like, will this note happen or not? And then like, what is the chance of that, right? So if it's all the way up, it's definitely going to happen. And then anywhere below that, it's starting to like really, question it, right? So we got that. And it's kind of randomly pitching some notes up. Like it's the same notes that you're seeing here being played at the same time, but sometimes they're an octave up and sometimes they aren't. That's what the chance is. It's the chance of that pitching up. Then we go into some delay and a bit of reverb. Now the reverb has this LFO on it. Which you can hear is already giving us a lot of glitch. A really cool way to get some nice glitch sounds is have a reverb where you have a random LFO like this that's really choppy, you know? You also could smooth it out if you wanted. Just depending on the tune, but I think if you really want that glitchier sound, it's cool when it's not smooth. And then that's just moving the dry wet randomly. And like jumping very quickly between positions. Then we have a high pass filter. And then finally we got beat repeat, which takes it from this to this. Right, it's set like this. The grid is basically like how fast the chop is, so it's super, super fast. And it sounds like it's doing a lot of the glitching, but again, even before this, it's already very glitchy because of that LFO on the dry wet on the reverb, plus the step arp. Like, that could work on its own, but then you add the beat repeat, and it's like the last bit of like very cool. And then this kind of works together with the pad, like when you hear it in the whole mix. Kind of all becomes one thing. So there we go. That is how you make that ambient kind of melodic breakcore that Venetian Snares and Squarepusher are so famous for. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe if you haven't already. Definitely grab this template at the top of the description. You can get these awesome glitchy drums to work with, plus the synths and stuff. There's just a lot to sink your teeth into here to help you make the breakcore track of your dreams. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.